Welcome to 5-Minute Fridays. Today we are talking about scholarship tax credits. Last week was School Choice Rally in Frankfort, where Kentuckians from private schools across the state came to Frankfort to express support for private education and also for something called a scholarship tax credit. The last few years in the General Assembly, we've seen bills filed that would provide for a scholarship tax credit in the state that would increase support for private school education. So with me today is the Prichard Committee's Deputy Director, Perry Papka, to talk with us a little bit more about scholarship tax credits. Perry, what is a scholarship tax credit?
Well, thanks, Brigitte. It's great to be with you this Friday to talk about this issue. And like you said, we've had this proposal come up in past sessions, and we think it's going to come up again this year. A scholarship tax credit at its core is a credit for someone donating money to a scholarship granting organization for scholarships for kids to attend private school or receive special education services. So this is a little different than what people hear as a school voucher, where a student or a family would directly receive funds from state government to attend an alternative education environment. In this case, a charitable person, it could be an individual, it could be a bank, it could be a business, donates money to an organization that then provides the scholarship to the parent or to the student and family to attend a private school. So it's almost like there's an extra middleman, and there's a tax benefit to the person donating the funds. So they get an actually almost one-to-one offset against the amount of taxes they owe the state of Kentucky for donating this money under these proposals.
What could be the impact then on the general fund or on Kentucky's ability to finance other things?
Well, in this case, again, we haven't seen a bill this session, but from past proposals, the staff of the General Assembly, they have economists and professional staffs that generate the estimates of how these proposals would impact the state. Under proposals we've seen, the costs have been $25 million and upwards annually, and over the course of the life of the tax credit, which in past proposals has been up to 7 years, is over $200 million. So that's a substantial impact on the state coffers, the revenue of which we use to invest in our public schools now. So when we think of the impacts, it directly impacts how much money we'll have available to invest in things that we're probably underinvesting in now, like preschool, which received almost a $6 million cut in the last budget. Or school transportation, how we get kids back and forth to public school now is underfunded by $135 million. Or in the last budget, we zeroed out instructional resources, which people generally think of as textbook, but it includes lots of technology services in this day and age, and professional development for teachers. So that was another $30 million that was reduced out of the budget. And these are on top of reduced spending over the last 10 years in both our main K through 12 funding formula, as well as our support for colleges and universities. So we have a lot of reductions that we need to make up ground on, plus new things. We have charter schools that were enabled 2 years ago that we haven't developed a funding mechanism for. And the priority this session is school safety. I mean, both chambers, both Senate and the House, have made this their number one priority, enacting new school safety policies that will require some resources in the future. So when we look at how we're going to fund our whole system, this definitely has an impact.
So a natural question for the Prichard Committee then is because we're interested in ensuring that students achieve at high levels, what does the research show about the impact of something like a scholarship tax credit or the impact of scholarshiping more kids into private education? Are their outcomes by and large better than the outcomes of public school students?
Well, that's a great question, and a big qualification is that this is an inherently difficult area to research because we often don't continue to get information on students after they go to private school. So researchers have tried to tease this out, both evaluating scholarship tax credit programs and their cousin, the voucher, which we talked about just a few minutes ago, which from the student's perspective is essentially the same. They get support to go to a different school. From a tax credit proposal, there's 17 other states across the country that have scholarship tax credits. Florida is the biggest, and they require an annual evaluation of their program. Overall, there is sort of not much impact. Kids are no better off and they're no worse. So it's really inconclusive. They haven't found that it's of substantial benefit, but there's not a substantial downside. There is a study recently that did show that students participating in the Florida tax credit did show higher rates of enrollment in community college after they got out of high school. But again, that was not overly conclusive either. The research on voucher programs is a bit more substantial. There's a number of states that have those. Evaluations of programs in Louisiana, Indiana to our north, the District of Columbia, have generally found negative impacts in the short term especially in mathematics, but also in reading and science and social studies. But again, these were not evaluations over a long period of time. I think a lot of that research is still evolving. But in general, what we understand today is that the academic impact is not of great benefit. There's not any huge negatives showing up in the research either. But from an investment perspective, it's hard to make the argument from an academic standpoint that this is something you should jump onto and do at any substantial level.
So if the state is looking for strategies to invest in to increase academic outcomes for students across the state and the state's academic outcomes overall, this may not be a strategy that we would choose to invest in.
I think that's fair. I think there's other areas that the Prichard Committee and other education groups would say we know have the most impact. And number one on that list is a highly effective, high-quality teacher in every classroom every year. So strategies that do that and ensure that every school and every kid has a highly effective teacher might be something we would want to consider above all else.
Perry, thank you for sharing information about scholarship tax credits. You can find more information about scholarship tax credits in a blog post on the Prichard Committee's Ed blog on our website at prichardcommittee.org. And we encourage you to be more aware of some of the bills that are going through the General Assembly this session to better understand their impact on Kentucky's ability to move forward in education.